Welcome back on Game Plan 2017. Tonight we host Deputy President William Ruto for the first time since the Supreme Court invalidated the result of the August 8th presidential election. The Electoral Commission has since announced October 17th as the date for the fresh presidential election. This even as controversy rages within the electoral body that was deemed to have bungled the election as per the Supreme Court ruling. Join the conversation. Keep talking to us. The hashtag is GamePlan2017 on Twitter. You can text us on 22422. Thank you, Your Excellency Deputy President, for making time for us.
Thank you, Hussein.
Now, almost 2 weeks since the Supreme Court nullified the election results of August 8th, a lot has happened, or rather a lot has been said after that. We'll talk about all that, including the IEBC. But first, your reaction and the President's reaction to the Supreme Court ruling, the decision, which many have criticized as proof that both you and the President and Jubilee in general do not respect the rule of law and the Constitution and democracy. And let's first of all take a look at what you said. This was as early as yesterday, as late as yesterday at Uhuru Park.
Hapo awali nilikuwa rais mtarajiwa. Si ni kweli? Si Maraga na watu yake hao wakora hao wamesema ati basi hiyo uchaguzi ipotee. Ndivyo wamesema. Sasa mimi sana sio rais mtarajiwa. Mimi ni rais ambao amekalia kiti.
The Supreme Court of Kenya was used by conmen. They conspired through treachery, conmanship and deceit to shortchange and subvert and overturn the will of 15 million Kenyans and the decision of 15 million Kenyans. We are telling the Supreme Court sooner than later, you should come to your senses and apologize to the people of Kenya for this great evil you have committed to the people of Kenya.
So the President has talked about Okora, he talked about conmen, trickery and deceit, ultimately even saying a great evil you have committed to the people of Kenya. Why would you say such a thing about the Supreme Court?
First, Hussein, let me say that as a government, we are on record as doing everything in our power to make sure that all our arms of government, from the legislature to the judiciary, have resources, have their independence protected. They have overturned many of the decisions that we have made. The judiciary has done everything that they wanted to do as an independent organization. And that demonstrates our commitment to the rule of law, the respect of our Constitution, and the respect of all institutions, especially the judiciary. Let me also say that there is no crime whatsoever in criticizing a decision of the judiciary. We didn't influence the decision. We didn't, unlike our competitors who threatened the court that if you are going to make this or that decision, we will do this or the other. You never heard us say that. All we are saying is the decision that the judiciary, the Supreme Court, let me put it, the Supreme Court has made, in our respectful opinion, is contrary to everything that we stand for.
As Jubilee or as Kenyans?
As Jubilee, and we are Kenyans. Jubilee are Kenyans. So what have we said?
But you went to the Supreme Court, Deputy President. Sorry, the petitioner went to the Supreme Court. You are the respondent.
Yeah.
And IBC was the respondent. Only two outcomes could have come. Either you uphold the election or the election is nullified. Are you saying there could have only been one decision that is right, any other decision is wrong? No. Only upholding would have been right?
That's not what we are saying. What we are saying is, for them to arrive at the decision they arrived, they told us two things, Hussein. They told us, number one, numbers don't matter. Processes do. Number two, they told us an election is a process. It is not an event. Meaning that they want to rewrite our Constitution, and they want to rewrite and redefine the meaning of democracy. in our very respectful position, Hussein, and this I said yesterday, we are Kenyans today because we chose to be Kenyans. We have a constitution today because we chose that constitution. At the heart of any democratic state is the right to choose.
Okay.
At the heart of any democratic nation, or at the heart of democracy itself, is the right to choose. Number two, at the heart of any democratic election is the voter. It is not the IEBC and its officials. It is not the candidates and their party officials. It is not civil society that is cooking things around with their sponsors. It is the voter. So, if the Supreme Court tells us that, number one, there is no contest whatsoever in terms of numbers, the number of votes, there is no contest.
That is arguable.
You know, there is no contest, Hussein. What is in contention? What was canvassed at the Supreme Court was there was this Form 34A and this Form 34B, which was not signed, it was not serialized, others were not stamped, others were not signed, all these have to do with the numbers you're talking about. I mean,
if anything, NASA and Raila Odinga went to court challenging the numbers.
They didn't challenge the numbers. They didn't challenge the numbers.
Okay. The reason why they went to court is because Uhuru Kenyatta won, and you won by 1.4 million votes, isn't it?
Correct.
They were not okay with how the process was done to come up with those numbers. So either way, the numbers are in question. And even if you look at Maraga's ruling, you talk about the integrity of the election. Have you been?
No, let me go back. Everything that was canvassed in court, if it was numbers, it was answered to the letter. What was at issue is not the voter who voted. It is, there was another form that was filled, and that form was not serialized. And that form, some of it was not signed. And that form, some of it did not have
the numbers.
And any reasonable court, anywhere in the world, and this has happened even in America, when there is doubt on which form, and you go back to the decision of the voter. What was the decision of the voter? It was our expectation, if the numbers were in doubt, that the Supreme Court would have asked, okay, if you have this form that is not properly filled, if there was this form that doesn't have a serial number, what is in the box?
Okay.
You know, that was unnatural.
First of all.
In the contest between Al Gore and George Bush, it went there. Because what is at the heart, and let me repeat, what is at the heart of any democratic election is the voter.
All right.
You know, and nothing
as a country
should disenfranchise the voter.
Okay.
Not the decision of an official who refused to sign a form.
As a country, Your Excellency, we have been through elections before. There have been problems before. That is why there were processes that had to be followed to the letter in all the laws that you were well aware of. That is why NASA went to court. In Justice Maraga's ruling, he said very clearly as to whether the illegalities and irregularities affected the integrity. First, he said there were irregularities and illegalities. And of course, the full judgment will come after 21 days, about I think September 21 or 22nd, thereabout. But he said, as to whether the legalities and irregularities affected the integrity of the election, the court was satisfied that they did, and thereby impugning the integrity of the entire presidential election. The integrity, meaning the process that came about with those numbers. So those numbers, what the court has said very clearly, and the issues of the forms and everything, still touch on the numbers. How can you lay claim to numbers whose process has been lacking in integrity?
Let me tell you, Hussein, this election, there were 6 elections in one. MCAs, Jubilee got 802 MCAs. Our competitors got 640. We got 170 members of parliament. They got 120. We got 31 women MPs. They got 16. We got 27 senators, they got 20. We got 29 governors, they got 18. My friend, in every of the 6 elections, we won. Any reasonable court will want to look at the entire process. And let me also go back to the numbers.
The Supreme Court is limited to the presidential election.
The Supreme Court should have. They live in Kenya.
But the jurisdiction is very clear in law that they
the Supreme Court.
They live in Kenya, yes.
The people we have appointed, it is assumed that the people we have appointed into the Supreme Court live in this country and they understand Kenya.
But that is where there are laws.
And they don't live in a world of their own.
And that is why there are laws, and it has said very clearly, Your Excellency, on the Supreme Court Act,
let me say
that the Supreme Court will deliberate matters to do with presidential election. Anyone who's aggrieved with the other tiers or cadres can go to the High Court and file petitions.
Agreed to Hussein, but they live in this country. Let me also say the following. If, for whatever reason, this is not a simple exercise, my friend, 15 million Kenyans, 15 million Kenyans dropped everything they were doing. They didn't go to their farms. They didn't look after their cattle. They didn't go to their hustles. They went to vote. Before you overturn the decision of 15 million Kenyans, you must give it the best possible chance to understand what did they say. What was their decision? Even if there was a form that was missing, even if there was a serial number that wasn't correct, even if there was a stamp that was missing, the Supreme Court needed to go the extra mile to secure our democracy, to secure the voter, because the voter here is an innocent person. As soon as the voter marks in the ballot box and says, I want Hussein to be my member of parliament, that decision is made.
Okay.
You cannot submit that decision to other processes and tell the voter that decision you made amounted to nothing because another guy did not fill some form and another guy did not stamp it and another guy failed to do something. May have messed with the numbers, if you tell the voter that by marking in the ballot you have not made the decision, so the voter needs to be informed that you haven't made a decision until it is filled in some form, until it is stamped somewhere else, until it is transported to another place, so that the voter can decide whether to delegate that responsibility of filling the form or he does it himself.
But it has been.
But it is assumed.
It has been delegated.
It is assumed.
This is the process of IEBC, and it's a process until the declaration of the result, isn't it? It's one long process.
Tenets of democracy, and every other process subsequent to a decision by a voter to mark that I want so and so, every other process should be submissive, subordinate to the decision of the voter. You cannot sacrifice the decision of voters at the altar of processes and problems and technicalities that have resulted in a process where the voter has no say.
Okay, so what about this voter? You said an innocent voter who went and voted and marked. What about this other innocent voter who went to vote and marked the ballot paper and waited for the whole process to come to an end, only to find out that towards the end some processes were messed up? Does it need to be listened to as well?
Fine, but that is why the Supreme Court needed to understand, okay, if there is a problem of process, the Supreme Court should have said, let us go and find out what was the decision of the voter. Forget about these processes. What did the voter decide? And the voter decided, and it is in the box. And for your information, Hussein, that is why the law demands that ballot boxes are secured for at least 6 months, so that if there is a decision to be made that will, one way or another, want to disenfranchise what the voter has decided, then you go back there. You don't throw away the decision of a voter merely because somebody else committed a crime here or there or did not do.
You are talking about opening up to actually recount. That's what you're saying.
Why not? It's provided for.
Jubilee, through the president, as a third respondent, had lawyers in court. You did not present this. Why didn't you talk? or request the recount of the ballot.
Because, my friend, the numbers were not in contest. The numbers were not in contest. It was processes. And
it was processed.
It was the disease. You know, for you to annul an election, you must be satisfied that this is not the decision that the voters made.
This was a case in court. Then NASA and Raila Odinga were challenging the process that came about with those numbers, meaning, according to them, and how the Supreme Court found out, these numbers were null and void because they did not follow the due process. So if you really are keen on those numbers and you're saying they would have been recounted or they should have been recounted, why didn't you put that as a request?
For your information,
as your lawyer, why didn't your lawyer do that?
For your information, Hussein, the Supreme Court is a court that is supposed to serve the people of Kenya. The Supreme Court, it is assumed, understands its responsibility. The Supreme Court is a product of our Constitution. The Supreme Court is supposed to be subordinate to the people of Kenya. It is the people of Kenya who made the decision on the 8th of August. They should have understood that their bosses had made a decision and they needed to secure, it is actually their duty and responsibility to secure the decision of their bosses, the people of Kenya. Instead, they chose to overturn that decision.
But it's also their duty, if a case is brought before them, to secure the decision of a Kenyan from being interfered with. That is also a duty.
You see Hussein, it is now for the court to tell us that 15 million Kenyans woke up and did nothing. That's what they're telling us.
Okay, we'll look at the full judgment when it comes. I want to move away from the Supreme Court issue, but still, the first question I asked, you talked about there's no problem, and world over it's happened, to criticize a decision of the Supreme Court or any other court or any other judge.
Yep.
But the words you used, when you say deceitful and trickery and conmen, and when the president used the word wakora, that is more than criticizing a decision.
You see, when you have a situation where all manner of information is flying around, right? And you have an outrageous, reckless, absurd decision that has been made, my friend, it can only be that there is something absolutely wrong with what is going on. And for your information, people are beginning to tell us, oh, maybe you needed to have done something. You know, nobody saw the judges. Nobody did what? My friend, I thought we were well beyond the days when it was said you didn't need to hire a lawyer because you could buy a judge. And that is why, from where we sit, we found it absolutely absurd for anybody to suggest to us that we needed to do something. And that is why we are saying, Hussein, the judges have made their decision. We disagree with that decision. But as people who respect the rule of law,
because you think they were influenced?
And constitutionalism, and as people who are decent, what we have done, we have said, fine, we don't agree with the decision, but we are going to abide by it. That is why we've rolled up our sleeves one more time. We're ready for the election on the 17th of August.
Okay.
Despite our criticism of the decision of the court, we have absolutely agreed to abide by that decision.
Right.
And we are...
And that you have done.
Full-fledged now going to elections on the 17th.
That you have done. But the question and the concern is, and we had this even from the Magistrate and Judges Association, the concern is, one, seemingly intimidating judges as a deputy president and a president. Between a lot of supporters in this country. And then making allegations or remarks that portray the judiciary as people being influenced by the opposition.
My friend, when our competitors, way before a decision is made by the court, issue threats and tell the court, you have to redeem yourselves. Between what we are saying, what we are doing is the norm. We are saying we are criticizing a decision after it has been made. Our competitors, we are not threatening anybody. We are saying this decision is wrong. We don't think it is right. And we have laid the facts why. We don't think this decision is right because the court seems to want to rewrite democracy, that it is not the decision of the voter that matters. It is the processes that matter. That to us is a complete rewrite.
They had the right to root either way,
of our constitution. When we are told that numbers don't matter, then what is democracy about? I thought it was the majority will have their way and the minority will have their say. In this case, it looks like numbers don't matter, so the minority will have. So this is and you see the fact that Hussein, you and me are not lawyers doesn't mean that we are idiots, my friend. We are reasonable people, and this is a reasonable debate we are having.
Okay. Again, still, the jury is out there, and many are not happy with how you have referred to the Supreme Court. Again, when you said you will accept grudgingly, but you will revisit this matter, you will fix the problems in the courts, isn't that a direct threat to the courts? What do you mean? What do you mean when you say you will revisit this matter?
That is not a threat. You know, this is a fundamental issue. It's not a small matter, Hussein. This is a matter that involves 15 million Kenyans who woke up in the morning to go and make a decision about their country, right? And this is a decision that was made and overturned by 4 Kenyans, right? So our revisit is, we will want to go back and finally count these ballots. That is where we want to go. Finally, when all this is over, we will ask. We will go to court respectfully in an orderly manner and ask what actually happened to this election, so that we verify one more time what was the decision of the Kenyan people. And that is a fair thing to ask. That's why we are saying this matter, because we are persuaded beyond any reasonable doubt that we want this election fair and square. And we are unapologetic about it. We want this election. And we want this election, Hussein, because we had a credible, a serious track record. Kenyans voted for Jubilee because we had a serious track record. We had a much more progressive and superior agenda for this country. That is what Kenyans voted for. And that is what the Supreme Court wants to deny the people of Kenya.
So by revisiting, you're saying, all you meant by saying you're revisiting this matter is to ensure these votes are still recounted. That's all you mean.
Yes,
that's all you mean.
That we will want to know exactly what happened. Did the people of Kenya make a choice? Did they make a choice? Because their choice was made and it is in the box.
And then what?
And then for knowledge, I mean, so that people can know.
Okay. After this then?
And so that we can be vindicated. When we say we are right and we say we won this election, then it will be known by all that this is an election that we won, we were denied.
After all this is said and done, if the fresh election, and I'm not saying your opponents have never talked ill of the courts, you have, your opponents have before, but many haven't been happy with how you've done it after the Supreme Court ruling. After this fresh election is done, if there's a dispute by either party, will you advise that they go back to the Supreme Court?
Do they have a choice? Do we have a choice? That is the law, my friend.
After all the things that have been said about the Supreme Court?
Why not?
After what you have said about the Supreme Court?
Why not? Why not? The Supreme Court is an institution, and it's supposed to serve the people of Kenya. The Supreme Court does not serve at the whim of anybody or at the pleasure of anybody or this or the other. Uhuru Kenyatta and I run this government. We are insulted left, right and center. We are told all manner of things, but we continue to do what we must do for the people of Kenya.
Okay.
And by the way, we do things for people who even don't like us, for people who even never voted for us, who may never vote for us. Okay. But we do it because we are running a Kenyan government that is supposed to serve every Kenyan equally. And therefore, it is our expectation that in spite of anything they want to think of us, they may think we are not good people, they may think we are this or the other, but the Supreme Court, as an institution, has a duty to serve us the way we serve every Kenyan. It is not what we like, it is not what we don't like, it is by virtue of the institution that you run.
Okay, do you regret anything you said about the Supreme Court then?
Not at all.
Not at all. We're taking a short break now. Keep talking to us. The hashtag is GamePlan2017 on Twitter. Keep texting us on 22422. This conversation goes on. Next up, we'll be talking about IBC and the way forward. Stay tuned.